All right, today we are jumping into the big ideas from Joe Osteen's book, Blessed in the Darkness. And this book, it offers a pretty radical way to rethink life's toughest moments. So we're going to break it all down. Let's get right into it.
So the book kicks off with this really powerful question, and it gets right to the heart of the entire message. I mean, think about it. We usually see hardship as a sign that something's gone wrong, right? It's a setback, a detour, maybe even a punishment. But what if? What if it's none of those things? What if it's actually a moment of profound preparation?
So let's talk about when life gets dark. We've all been there. You get a bad medical report, a sudden layoff from a job you loved, a relationship just ends out of nowhere. And in those moments, man, it is so easy to feel lost, defeated, to feel like life is just completely unfair. You can feel totally and completely alone.
And here's the core problem the book really tackles. We tend to use the word blessed for all the good stuff, the promotion, the new baby, a clean bill of health. But that view, it only tells half the story. The book suggests that the real, deep growth, well, that happens somewhere else entirely.
And that brings us to this pivotal idea in the book, a complete shift in perspective. It's the difference between feeling like you've been buried and realizing you've actually been planted.
The central metaphor here is just perfect. It's a seed. A seed can sit on a shelf forever, comfortable in the light, but all of its potential is just going to stay locked inside. For it to become what it was made to be, a flower, a huge tree, it has to be put into the dark, uncomfortable soil. In other words, just like a seed, we can't really germinate in the light.
Look at how this breaks down the two mindsets. Feeling buried feels like the end. It feels like a punishment, like defeat, like you're lonely and forgotten. But reframing it as being planted, well, that changes everything. All of a sudden, it's not the end, it's the beginning. It's not a punishment, it's a necessary process. It's preparation for some incredible growth.
And this gets to such a crucial point. We all want the good stuff, right? The beautiful flower, the fruit, the success. But we often fight against the very process that's required to get there. That dark, uncomfortable, kind of lonely period of just waiting. But the process isn't just some obstacle you have to get over. The process is the way.
So, the purpose of pain. If these dark places are so necessary, what are they actually for? What purpose does all that pain really serve? Well, the book argues there are 4 key benefits that are forged in that fire. First, it develops your character. You learn patience, humility. Second, it teaches you to trust, especially when life makes absolutely no sense. Third, it stretches your faith way beyond its comfort zone. And finally, it toughens you up. It gives you a kind of spiritual strength you just couldn't have gotten any other way.
To make it even clearer, think about fertilizer. The bad breaks, the disappointments, all the things in life that feel messy, and let's be honest, they just plain stink. The book says those are the very nutrients that enrich the soil of your life. They provide exactly what you need to grow stronger and blossom later on.
The story of Joseph from the Bible is a perfect example of this. I mean, the guy went from a pit of betrayal to a prison of injustice. Those were his dark places, but they weren't his final destination. This illustrates a key idea from the book: trouble is transportation. The pit and the prison were the very vehicles that ultimately got him to the palace.
All right, next up, transformed in the cocoon. This is all about what's happening to you in the dark.
Think about it for a second. A caterpillar is just crawling along, doing its thing, and then suddenly it finds itself confined to this dark, lonely, uncomfortable space. It can't move, it can't eat, it must feel like a prison. And you'd think, well, this is it, this is the end.
But here's the key insight. Something absolutely profound is happening in that darkness. Even when it feels like nothing is changing, when you just feel stuck, that's the incubation period. That's when, secretly, your wings are developing.
So the big takeaway here is that while we might complain about being in the cocoon, the loneliness, the discomfort, the darkness, it's an absolutely essential part of the journey. It's what prepares you to stop crawling and start flying, to reach a level you never could have gotten to otherwise.
Okay, on to our final section, your exclamation point. This is all about how we move from the question to the answer.
Life is just full of these confusing question marks, isn't it? Why did this happen to me? Will I ever get through this? The core idea here is that if you can just hold on with the right attitude, those periods of confusion are actually destined to be turned into these powerful statements of victory and purpose.
I absolutely love this quote.
It's such a simple but really profound way to visualize what's happening. The very thing that was bent and crooked with confusion and doubt gets straightened out into a powerful declaration of strength. It's just perfect. And the author gives a personal example of this. The question mark of, will the church even make it after my father's death? Well, that was straightened out into the exclamation point of acquiring a massive new facility. The question, can I really do this? Can I minister to people? Was straightened out into a global ministry. It's a powerful way to see this idea in action.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? The core action is to just trust the process. It's about having faith in the middle. When you're in that dark valley and absolutely nothing makes sense, it really reminds you of that line from Psalm 23, that the journey through the valley is what leads to that prepared table on the other side. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Looking at your own life, right now, what's that confusing question mark you're facing? Because according to this book, that very question might just be the raw material for your next great exclamation point.